5:30. I call this regular meeting to order of the Historic Preservation Commission on October the 12th, 2002. I'm Elizabeth Kelly. I'm just interim acting chair, unelected person. And can we start with the roll call, Miss Chris?
Delicio?
Present.
Kelly?
Here.
Thomas? Shirley?
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. Number 2 on our agenda, and I'm going to, I don't know if I need to do it here, but we are going to tweak the agenda just slightly and have Ms. Racky go first under new business. I just wanted to mention that. And then also, just as a reminder in terms of the agenda or any adjustments, you know, that we can all help with time management and appreciate that if we can just, we've got a lot of discussion under unfinished business, so if we can just kind of keep things on track, that would be awesome. So do we have any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move to number 3, the approval of the September 14th, 2022 Historic Preservation regular meeting minutes. Did you guys have a chance? I have a couple questions or clarifications. And so on the second page at the very top, Colorado closely to follow with a desire for the structure and facade. Paul also provided approval from the State Historic Preservation Office. So, and this is just a matter of, so Chris, so we are always using the State Historic Office as sort of the primary approver of such matters?
That was Paul Flynn's choice, if that makes any sense. He knows the process better than I do, and he had already went through that whole process himself.
Okay, so it was just, so I just wondered, you know, kind of about that.
So we should strike from approval because it's Paul also provided approval from the state. Approval from
yeah,
approval.
it's just the grammatical. Go ahead and say it and speak, Jean.
Just to strike that second from approval.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And then, under unfinished business, request for landmarking documents, or unfinished business A. Requests for landmarking documents were submitted to Sharice Boomsa of the Preservation Studio to get a contract to encumber the $10,000 before December 31st. So are we doing that regardless of sort of what budget recommendation we send for approval, or is that going to change, or do we just leave that as is?
Well, we already have that budget approved, so we're trying to make
Right,
sure
yeah,
we
we're trying to
keep that money.
to claim this current year's budget.
It's already approved.
And then proceeding, it will just be, if there's applicants, we will make them a priority before city-owned properties.
And the Fox West really won't be ready by December
or
or next year, so we might have to substitute maybe another city property.
Yeah,
So-
the city recommends that the properties not be under construction. So that's our priorities for
So
the city.
I don't know if it's appropriate or necessary, but, and I'm so grateful to you, Chris, thank you for doing the spreadsheet. When we get to the budget, we'll talk more about that, but about having a little bit of some of this explanatory comments where it's appropriate on the budget, just so I have a hard time remembering, and I'm not part of other side conversations that might be going on. So I think if we're just clear about was there carryover and have that be in writing somehow, somewhere, perhaps in that budget request. Does that make sense?
The clarifications could also be provided in a letter to the city manager like we did last year. I'm only accommodating our CFO's request
Sure.
to put it in
Okay.
Excel.
So maybe, would it make sense for us to do a cover letter with kind of some of this narrative explanation, clarifications, and then that spreadsheet, so 2 documents?
That would
Could we do
sound
that?
perfect, yes.
Okay, awesome. And then, lastly, and again, this is probably redundant, so I apologize, under chairperson's report, commissioner's report, the HPC members also encouraged Mr. Glenn to seek the $2,000 incentive from our budget for the East Street School and the First Presbyterian Church. So is that just a matter of the applicant contacting you for that incentive, or exactly?
Or for an application and then go before a CLG or the state
For the
review.
incentive funds?
For the review. It's not up to me, it would be up to the commission to
But the actual
determine.
process is they get a form and they fill it out
Application.
and,
Yes, anyone's that is in historic preservation or has a
About 50-year.
50-year-old or older residence or building should be encouraged to apply.
So like we did with Tom, he applied with the incentive.
well, and I understand the
Yeah, okay.
criteria, I'm just like literally, wanting to know what the actual process is, so paper process, so they get the application, they submit it to you, and then we would
We
be
review it.
looking at it.
Yeah, I'll be the processor and
Okay,
the
Thank
commission
you.
shall be the
You
reviewer.
pay that
It will
incentive
not be,
after they get approved, right? Is that when we?
And then it has to go before the state, correct?
well, the state is the additional recommendation, but we're actually can provide that upon the state's behalf. We're just getting additional approval sometimes through the state historic.
that's kind of what I was getting at with my other question, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, so we're just requesting additional information. Now, the last time I requested information for the applicant that I'm working on right now, but it's not complete, they denied it. They were like,
No
we don't
information.
provide that kind of information to you. So I'm like,
Even if you're gonna,
I'm not asking the right person,
Mm.
apparently.
But that's the process. They come to you, they get the form from you, they apply. We look at it at one of the meetings and approve, like we did Fort Wooten.
Yeah, after I deem everything complete, I don't want to provide y'all with an incomplete application. So
Okay.
once I deem it, the only part I have is I have to deem it complete, and then I put it on the agenda for your review.
And then when we approve it, that's when we give them the money to pay for that study or the incentive,
If they're landmarking,
if they're landmarking,
yes.
if they got approved for landmarking.
Yeah, if the applicant is for landmarking, we have that incentive to provide to them. And I don't know if that's upon your request, or I just know it's, the money is provided as we requested in the budget.
Right. To incentivize them to do the landmark, but probably we
Yes.
shouldn't pay them until the application comes in and we approve it.
Well,
That's
we
how
don't
we
really
get Tom.
we don't pay them to do it, we pay
Boomtown?
for the, Boomsma for the professional
Con-
report, because
Okay.
it has to be done by a certified historian.
Okay, that's.
But
It can't be done by
incentive
us.
goes to the applicant, correct?
No,
It goes to the
it goes to
consultant.
Boomsma for
Oh,
the consultant.
Oh, so
Okay, then I
No,
was
you're
wrong.
not-
I didn't know that.
We're covering their fee, which we don't have the fee on there, but that's the fee that the city has to pay.
So,
Right, for our city-owned buildings.
so normally that fee
the
would be
review.
covered by the applicant, but we're saying as an incentive, the city is going to cover that fee.
But what we do need to clarify is that our fee, there should be a fee charged for the application. We have not gotten that far yet as to come up with fees, or should we charge fees.
Well, that probably is another thing to put under new business another time. I think,
Yes.
yeah, because we're still just approving the minutes, really.
Right, so, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get us bogged down, so, but it would be helpful to have that. You know, I know there's like some policy and procedure stuff that we need, I just want to be clear about what we're doing.
I think that's,
so.
yeah,
Okay.
work that we need to accomplish in the
Okay,
future year.
thank you so much. Do we have a motion to accept these minutes of September 14th with that grammatical error or change?
I moved to approve with the corrections that we talked
With
about.
corrections, thank you, Ms.
I'll
Shirley.
second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll call for a vote.
Would you call for a vote?
Delicio,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Thomas, Shirley.
Yes.
Okay. Sit up. Miss
And this is the.
Carrie, can you hear us? No?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so we're
I'm
going
gonna-
to move to item number 4, following the approval of the minutes. Number 4 is public hearings. We have no public hearing scheduled this evening, so now we'll move to number 5, new business, and we just tweaked those and flipped it around a little bit, and I'm going to ask Ms. Rackie if you could go ahead. We'd appreciate you
This
being
conference
here.
will now be recorded.
Oh. Thank you for being here. We're ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll share my screen here. So you're able to see the slides?
It's coming up. There
yes,
it is.
they are.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. So I'm Carrie Rackie. I'm with Stantec Consulting Services, and I've been working with City Trinidad since 2015 on various Brownfield projects. Way back with Tara Marshall when I first started working with the city, and then for several years with Georgie Clark, who I really miss, and now with your new team. So I'm excited to get to know your new folks there managing the program. I hope I know how to change my slides here. I'm managing multiple screens. There we go. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what brownfields are, kind of when we use that term, what are we talking about, and I'll talk about the background of your Brownfield grant program there if you're not familiar with it, and the current status of your program, and then kind of what's coming up in the next couple of years. So just to give you a general definition of what we mean when we use this term brownfield, this is the EPA definition, so it's property where expansion, redevelopment, or reuse is complicated by the presence or suspected presence of contamination. And I think that's kind of a narrow definition, and as I go through my slides, you'll see a little bit more about, you know, what we think of as brownfields more broadly. I think people often think of properties like gas stations and dry cleaners that maybe are closed down. Those are the first sites that come to people's mind when they think of brownfields, but they can also be just a vacant lot or a vacant building that might have asbestos or lead paint in it. We look for things like, you know, past uses are important, so dry cleaners, they're pretty typical. We also just look for things like signs of potential environmental issues, like, you know, some drums left behind, or even just kind of the perception of contamination or neglect can result in a property sitting around and not being redeveloped because people think that something is going on there that has sort of devalued it or made it a liability. So this EPA Brownfield grant program is supposed to help deal with sites like this. It's supposed to promote infill development if there are gaps in a nice, dense, developed downtown. You know, and maybe nobody wants to develop there because they think there was a contaminating use there in the past. And it can also help identify places where maybe there's a non-conforming use or a use that's not ideal for the setting. And this picture down in the bottom of this slide is kind of a funny example of, I mean, I think that building has been converted into something that is appropriate for the use, but you can see that essentially there was a big factory there and that the downtown has kind of grown up around it, and it's not a good fit for the community anymore. So to deal with properties like that are kind of not living up to their best potential for whatever reason, really, EPA came up with the Brownfield grant program way back in the 90s. So it's been going annually for a long time. It's a very successful program. Every year they put out an announcement saying they're accepting grant applications. There's a few different types of grants that they give out, and they're predominantly focused on either doing assessment, which means kind of doing some sampling or some studies, or doing cleanup. And there's a couple of grants that they have that let you do both, but they don't have as many of those nationally. So that's kind of a general overview of EPA's Brownfield program. The state of Colorado also has its own Brownfield program at the Department of Public Health and Environment. And they provide technical assistance. They're just kind of a scaled down version of what EPA has. They also have grants available for assessment and cleanup. They have a revolving loan fund, so they can make friendly terms, sort of low interest and flexible length loans to developers if they want to clean up a brownfield in order to get it back into productive use. And they have a remediation tax credit program, so developers can get a tax benefit if they clean up a contaminated property for redevelopment. And both of those programs, the federal and state programs, have kind of shared goals. The idea is if you keep properties that have already been developed but now are just kind of left either partially vacant or just not very well utilized, you can prevent sprawl. Having vacant sites and neglected sites can attract vandalism and dumping and crime and that kind of thing. So these grants are intended to sort of prevent that. It brings new businesses, new job opportunities. It can help improve the tax base. It protects, of course, public and environmental health, and just generally enhances the livability of a community. We use the term brownfields a lot for these properties, and no one wants to own a brownfield, right? But I think another way to brand them is that they're basically opportunity sites. They're sites where there's an opportunity for more robust use, and these grant funds are available to help make that happen. So they can facilitate property transactions if you are looking to sell a piece of property that you own, or if you're looking to buy a piece of property to put a new business on. A lot of times lenders require that you do certain environmental due diligence, which this grant can pay for. And then there's just the general kind of technical assistance with what liabilities are, kind of navigating through those questions. And then you can use these grants, as we'll discuss in a little bit, to think about what redevelopment possibilities are for a piece of property. And these are two examples that will look familiar to you. This is kind of exactly what Brownfield grants want to accomplish, what EPA would love to be able to say that their program helps to accomplish. So Space to Create, we didn't actually use EPA Brownfield grant funding for that project, but it's exactly the type of project that fits in well. La Puerta is another one where we used the city's first EPA Brownfield grant to do phase 1 and 2 environmental site assessments to kind of help move that development forward and make sure there weren't any environmental constraints to the way they wanted to develop it. And finally, this is kind of a thing that EPA wants to see come out of their program. Their grants aren't very big. They're typically around $500,000. So I think they understand that giving a community $500,000 for this work isn't going to transform the community, let alone multiple sites within the community. So it's intended to be seed money, and it's intended to start the process and unlock other sources of funding, like private development. And so they've done studies that show that for every $1 invested from EPA Brownfield grants, almost $18, and this is an older graphic, so it may be better than that now, but almost $18 of total investment from other public agencies and private investment can be leveraged. So a little bit about the grants that you originally were awarded. The city joined together with the town of Aguilar and Los Alamos County and applied for and won a $500,000 grant back in 2015. And it was a Brownfield assessment grant. And so what you can do with that kind of grant is you can do phase 1 environmental site assessments, and those are, we call them a desktop study. So you're really just looking at historical photos, historical maps, state agency, environmental agency records, anything you can look at to get an idea of how the site's been used and what contamination might be there. But for phase 1s, you don't actually take any samples yet. And so if your phase 1 environmental site assessment shows that there might be some contamination on the site, you can move to a phase 2, and that's when you go out and actually collect samples of soil or groundwater or soil gas or whatever you think, based on how the site was used, what makes sense. You can also use the funding to collect building material samples, which is what we've done a lot of in Trinidad, because you have a lot of beautiful historic buildings that folks want to redevelop. We've done a lot of asbestos and lead paint surveys to help with those redevelopment plans. And then another big kind of category of how you can spend this kind of grant is in cleanup and reuse planning. So this grant can't be used to actually do environmental cleanup, but you can plan environmental cleanup right up until you're ready to do it. So you can write your plan and work with CDPHE or whatever agency is regulating the site and come up with a cleanup plan that's agreed upon. You can get bids from contractors to do the cleanup work. You can even apply for funding from the state to do the work, but you just can't actually go out there and move soil and treat groundwater and that kind of stuff. So that's the cleanup planning piece, but the interesting piece is the reuse planning. That is a really broad category, and it's kind of like whatever you might think of that could help spur reuse of an underutilized property in terms of planning. You can probably get it paid for. So we've done things like assessments for potential for earthquake damage. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the background. So we've done seismic assessments. We've done conceptual designs to see what the site layout would look like, how much housing you can fit on a certain parcel, and what parking requirements are and that kind of thing. We can do that on a site-specific level, or you can do that on sort of a level of they call them area-wide. So maybe there's a corridor that's particularly impacted with these properties, or just an intersection where you have a few properties that aren't kind of taking advantage of their high-profile location and their the other amenities and benefits of that site. So that's something to keep in mind, that planning piece is very, very flexible. And so going on with your 2015 grant, just some examples of where we spent the funding. We did that lead paint and asbestos testing in the Fox West Theater. We did soil and groundwater sampling at the La Puerta site. This isn't all of them, but just to kind of give you a feel for where we were. We did asbestos and lead paint samples in the East Street School and in this building on Pine Street that I think is undergoing or there's interested in redevelopment. And kind of within that planning scope that I was talking about, we did a countywide market study. So we brought specialists in who do economic analysis, and we were able to get kind of a study of what uses the brownfields in town might be well suited for. So what services do you have a lot of? What are you missing? What do people leave Trinidad to buy or to do, or what kind of services do they have to leave in order to get? So even that kind of economic planning, because these brownfield grants are just as much about economic development as they are about environmental cleanup, really. So this is the kind of study we were able to do with your last round of funding. And we also went down to Aguilar and helped them develop an economic development roadmap. So we went down and did some interviews, and we identified kind of short, mid, and near-term steps that they could take to try to do some economic revitalization based on what businesses might be successful there. So I'm anxious to check back in with Aguilar to see, how they're doing on that, or if it was useful, or maybe we can update it now that we've got additional funding. So the funds were spent as of 2021, but you still had some properties that had expressed interest in using the grant assistance. So Georgie and I just kind of assembled a waiting list of properties, and that was really helpful in developing a new application for additional funding. So in 2020, we put together 2 new Brownfield grant applications. One, basically a redo, the same kind of grant funding you had originally with the Town of Aguilar, with Los Animas County to do assessments. And then we also did a Brownfield cleanup grant application for Fox West Theater to abate the lead paint and asbestos in the theater that we had found with the assessment grant. And we were successful with both of those grants. So that resulted in $1.1 million coming in from EPA, and that was really, really exciting for a town the size of Trinidad. That's pretty unusual. So those grant awards were announced in May of last year. The funds became available, and that date is wrong. That's right, October 2021. That's the start of EPA's fiscal year, so that's when those funds first became available. So we've started using them on properties in October. So going almost a year now, or a little over a year now. So a little more detail on the Fox West Theater with that cleanup grant that EPA awarded. That work happened lickety-split, right when the funding came through from EPA. We already had solicited bids from some abatement contractors and selected a contractor, and they were ready to go right when the funding came through. We also were able to get an additional $108,000 cleanup grant from Department of Public Health and Environment, and one way that was useful is the EPA grant, which was $500,000. Requires a match, but it can come from state funding, it can be in kind. So part of that $108,000 from CDPHE, it helped meet the match requirement for the EPA grant. So there's a couple more cleanup steps that are happening at Fox West Theater. The lead paint and asbestos work is done. There are some historic backdrops and curtains that were damaged by basically pigeon infestation, as most abandoned or empty buildings that sit empty for a while do kind of attract pigeons. And these backdrops have a lot of historic value, so the EPA agreed to allow the use of their grant funds to restore these historic backdrops. So that's, we brought in, again, specialists, because that's not something that I do. And there's also a curtain that is made of asbestos that used to hang in the theater as kind of fire prevention.
Wow.
Also really beautiful, historic. It's painted, hand painted, it's beautiful. And so they're going to bring another specialist in to encapsulate that curtain using the EPA grant funds, and then bring all those resources back to the theater as it kind of progresses toward being ready to reopen. So just a very broad overview of what we've done so far with the assessment grant. So that's the cleanup grant that was used on the Fox, and you've got this brand new assessment grant, $600,000 that just started in October. So we've already done 3 phase 1 site assessments, 4 phase 2s, which includes both building materials and things like soil and groundwater. And we've got 2 phase 2s in process now. And another thing that we need to do as part of the grant project is do community outreach. So this meeting that we're in right now is one way to let the community know all the details about this grant and that the city has this funding and what it's for. Another thing we'll be doing is having public meetings kind of specifically for the grant occasionally. And so we had one in March of 2022. It was kind of a hybrid virtual and in-person meeting. And I came down for that. Sky Tallman was working for the city at the time, so he helped set that up. So hopefully we'll be able to do a couple more of those during the life of the grant and invite people to come and provide input and just learn more about the program. And the purpose of that community involvement, as I'm sure you can imagine, is everything from identifying properties that could benefit from using these grant funds. You all and the people who live in Trinidad know better than I do what sites are there that would benefit. You have historical knowledge of what used to happen on these properties, what kind of operations. It also is important to help the community shape the redevelopment plan. So folks can have a say in, to some extent, especially if a property is publicly owned, what the redevelopment looks like and what fits in well with community goals. And really just the point of community development is to spread the word, make sure as many people know about the funding as possible, and have the ability to provide input and ask questions. So we'll be continuing to share information as the grant program moves forward. We'll be posting occasionally on Facebook. We'll put things on the city's calendar. We have some content ready to update the city's website. There's a webpage or a mention of the grant program on the planning webpage, and we've got plans to beef that up a little bit. And one of the things we'll put on there is this nomination form. So this will be a form that anyone, a property owner or a potential purchaser or just a community member, can fill out this form and submit it to the city and say, hey, there's this property on XYZ corner, and we think it's underutilized, and we're worried that it might be contaminated, and we'd like you to consider whether you can spend some EPA money there to take a look at it. So our next steps really are, we need to identify more opportunity sites. So, you can always contact Chris or Steve or Audra if you have an idea of properties that could benefit from some assistance with this funding. They can be anywhere throughout. As I mentioned, your coalition partners are Aguilar and Los Animas County. So this grant, although it's sort of focused in Trinidad and you are the grantee, the funds can be used anywhere in the county. So think about those planning needs. If there are planning exercises that you might want to accomplish that have a brownfield, aspect to them, you might be able to use this funding for those. And we'll be continuing to do public engagement to let everyone know that these funds are available in your community. So that's my 90-mile-an-hour Brownfield tour. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just really appreciate the update. It's just really helpful to have that sort of all together, so thank you so much for that. And it did occur to me, and what we can talk about it as a commission and with the staff, but we do we'll be doing our second annual community outreach event for historic preservation in June. We did one last year, and we want to do this annually, and to bring folks perhaps like yourself who would give, I love this idea of, if there are just citizens, in our community who have some ideas about being involved in identifying brownfield properties or locations, would it make sense for you or your office to attend, that event and kind of talk about that and go over the nomination form? Just a thought. Yeah, and let me rearranging my screens here, and so I can turn up my volume a little bit. So, and my sound isn't great, so I think you were asking if it makes sense to, provide some of this information at your public outreach events for historic preservation, and have me come down and be. I fully intend to come to. I come to Trinidad, but at least once a year.
So when, and it's coming up, your second annual one, when will that be?
I was thinking it was June 9th.
First or second week. First week is June 2nd. It might be June 2nd or 3rd or 9th or 10th. First or second weekend in June. We haven't really set it. We're gonna set it soon.
Yeah, we haven't formalized that plan, but we will definitely
I
make
think
sure
this would
that
be
you're
great
invited.
to have the-
And if you can't come, we can maybe provide the materials. Maybe you could provide us with
Yeah,
some materials.
yeah. For sure, and you know, I'm in Portland, Oregon, which is why I'm a face on a screen today, but we have a whole, we have staff in Denver, and if I can't come down, I will try my hardest to come down, I really want to, but if I can't, I can have someone from Denver stop by as well. Do you do those in person, or do you do them virtually?
So our plans, and I believe it is the 9th and the 10th that we're looking at. So it would be in person. We're trying to do something, you know, really community oriented, you know, bring people in, especially some youth and our schools. And we have other elements that we want to involve. But yeah, we're just starting to plan that again for next spring. And I believe it is June the 9th. So if either you or one of your staff could attend, that could really work.
No, I think it's.
I would love that. Did you say June?
June 9th.
June?
Yes, can you hear us okay?
Not really. She doesn't.
It's my sound is not great. I'm sorry. I'm on a little computer, but I can piece it together.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to know if you send any press releases too for that, all that information, because that is an amazing report. I've
It
never seen a
is.
grant do that much work, and I haven't even heard about it. So I'm really interested that we get this out to the World Journal and some of the Trinidad Chronicle and other media resources we have. I don't know if you have if we can see your PowerPoint or send us that.
I have access that I can share
Okay.
that Carrie provided earlier.
Can you hear?
Yeah, and I'm happy to help with press releases and that kind of thing too.
It would be good to have that recently, because that would show what kind of improvements are being made, and I didn't understand all that planning process and the cleanup and the whole phases that you had, so that's a real important part to let people know, I think.
And in addition,
Yeah, and if there's a time,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there's a time when there's more time available, I can do kind of a deeper dive on that planning piece, because the documents that our planning folks generate they're really cool. I mean, the stuff that I do is just, I'm the environmental, I'm dirty dirt and dirty water, and that's it's not as inspiring, but the stuff that they do a lot of outreach, so they pull a lot of community input into what they recommend, and it's pretty impressive.
So I'm wondering, yeah, with the press release, if that does come to pass, that if there could be maybe something, information about that nomination form, or just the way citizens can be involved, that would be helpful, I think. Meaningful.
Okay. Yeah.
And she will send
Any
it to
other questions?
Yeah.
No, not right now.
Chris, did you have any other questions?
Oh, I was just wondering which building on Pine Street were you identifying?
It's that, let's see, let me pull that image back up. Let's see.
Was it the
I think it's,
apartments or the Eagle
oh,
building?
sorry.
Was it the apartments or the Eagle building?
It's the Eagle building.
Oh, we are looking at the Eagles building actually as well, but this one that I put the picture up before is,
It's where the video store
Oops.
was.
Yeah, the videos.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's where the video store was on Pine Street.
That one.
can you see that? This one in the bottom left.
Yeah,
I think this is one of the ones that Dana Crawford had purchased.
yeah.
Okay. The
Yeah, so we did
Videos.
Yes.
part of it.
video store?
Yeah.
I thought, does that include the apartments on the side?
Video.
I'm not sure where the line was. I can
That's
look
okay.
back and see kind of what part she purchased and what actually where the bright line was where we did our assessment. It's been a little while.
I'm just trying to keep the building straight so we don't reapply for a building that we've already applied for.
Yeah, and we actually, every time we do an assessment using EPA funds, the EPA requires us to enter it into their database. It's called the ACRES database, and so that's part of my job. So I enter these sites in there. So when I go back to do another one, it would flag it up, and I would see that it had already had an assessment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Anybody else have any questions, comments for Carrie? I just really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye. Okay. Next under new business, I know Carlos Madrid's name is located there. May I call you Carlos,
Yeah.
please?
You need me
So
to
I'm
come
not quite sure what we were
I think we're,
expecting or hoping or thinking that Carlos was going to talk about.
up?
Do we know?
his application.
Well, yeah,
For the
I think it was
commission.
just.
Right, but
Is that yourself?
I never had to come in front of the commission.
Oh,
Oh,
Maybe it's a new
no,
thing.
I mean,
I did.
just
Yeah,
a
little influence.
reiteration of what I spoke about last time is that, I love history. I love the history in the city. I've done a lot of work to try to do some of the preservation, mostly just been on the photo end of just having something to show what the buildings are in the current state and trying to show like where the progression is going.
It's a lot of drone work.
Yeah.
Right, I've
Like,
seen a lot of your stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, so, and really, I know you guys need extra people on the commission. And if there's one commission that I probably should be on, it's probably this one, because it's probably my most, the one that I really focus a lot on is history and preservation and stuff. I've been a land surveyor for the past 12 years, so I have tremendous experience on research
Very helpful.
and trying to figure out land and what property belongs to what
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, and I love it. And one of my big things that, and I've told these guys that I really want to try to get preserved is the old Wheeler monument that's over off of the highway.
Where's that at?
It's right off of Topeka. It's at the end of Topeka Avenue, right against the freeway. There's a stone there you can see right before you get off the exit 12. And it's old Wheeler survey stone that's
Oh, okay.
was set there in the 1880s.
1800s.
Yeah, and it's a very important monument as far as the development of the West.
Probably everything in this area was mapped off that.
It was mapped off of that stone. So
Wow.
What do you feel like you have a good understanding kind of what the commission itself does compared to, say, the Historic Society or some of the other folks who are interested in preserving history in Trinidad?
I think that's where I'm kind of lacking and where I want to understand a lot more. I mean, just from that speech itself, it was like, wow, that's like huge. Like, I've heard of the Brownfield stuff, but I thought it was just for like old gas stations, stuff like that. I didn't know that there was this much that could be applied into it as far as like lead paint, asbestos, and that's
And the plant and the soil.
huge in this area. I mean, I've worked with a few business owners in the community when I first moved here, just doing some like handyman services and stuff like that, and just looking at the status of the buildings and seeing where they are, and just seeing like, oh, this is definitely asbestos. This is definitely lead paint, or this probably is lead paint because it's never been painted over.
Mhm.
You know, so there is like, I mean, that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just ask you that not to discourage you in any way. I think that there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a certified local government was before I got on the commission, and it's very specific. And I wonder if we could just take like 2 minutes each, so you know who you're talking to just give you a bit of our background.
Okay.
Shirley, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, my name is Shirley, and my last name's also Shirley, so kind of a double thing going on there. But I'm a retired archaeologist, and I also worked for FEMA, doing historic preservation reviews, mostly for projects that they had. So now I'm just living in Trinidad. I moved here from Austin, Texas, and been here 3 years now. I've been on the commission only like 6-7 months.
And we've talked a little bit about when bringing a new person on and what that process might look like, and want to do a better job of, you know, sort of mentoring or coaching and guiding people, you know, but you know, sometimes this is what happens. You join and you just learn as you go, and there's a lot of that.
Until I started this.
Until you started.
I didn't, I didn't know what the requirements were, because there are requirements for being the local certified government. And so, you know, I have a lot better understanding now of what that is myself.
Okay.
How about you, Jean?
Well, I guess I'm a member at large according to this qualification scheme, and I've been on 4 years. I've been on the longest, and I'm trying to help coach and mentor, and we've also gotten to go to several conferences with the History Colorado in Denver, and we went to San Luis to visit there, and the city's been very influential in helping us get training. So it's a really effective way of getting to know people, and I'm also a music teacher for a living, so I help everybody harmonize, right? Is that my new goal? That's my new commission goal. Harmonize, and also work with the New Legends magazine, so we're about preserving history, and let's see. So that's what we're going to discuss today. I'd just like to make a recommendation that we move his application to get approved by City Council. Is that what we need to do? Because they're supposed to come before us and meet, and then we
I know I
approve
went
it.
before the city council, and all they did was just acknowledge me basically, and
Right, so that is the process, is that we make a recommendation.
We make the recommendation,
And then City Council actually is the formal body
You
that
have
would
to go to the
appoint you.
City Council meeting where they're gonna probably. I don't think they were asking any questions.
No, it's just I think it's just on the consent agenda. So
Yes.
I'm on the urban forestry board. So I'm on that board right now, and I went
You went
and
through
talked to
that
the
process?
city council then.
So I think, I'm Elizabeth. I've been on the commission just 2 years. I've had a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn. I have reapplied, but I'm also, you know, hoping that we can sort of mature the commission and, you know, really understand better what our role is.
Did you have to resubmit another application?
Yeah.
Oh, so I didn't do that, so I guess I'll be off.
you better submit one really.
And I think the bottom line is just making sure, you know, because I love historic buildings, I love Trinidad, there's just so much amazing history, and though our role is pretty circumscribed in terms of landmark designations, local landmarking, recommending them. Yes, we've been able to attend, it's called Saving Places, they do it every year. Chris knows more about that than I, but it's an amazing group of folks that everything, you know, History Colorado, all the folks that are doing historic preservation. So that's a really, you know, engaging and enriching process. And beyond that, we have now this outreach event that we're trying to do. We're going to do another one this year. So I think, and that's a lot of fun. It's very time consuming.
Tom was our first speaker, and we did it at the Chappelle House.
Lots of planning.
He told us how and we had banners and went to the historic preservation, or History Colorado buildings, right? Bloom Mansion. Did we go there too? The Bloom
Oh,
Mansion.
the History Museum, yes.
Yeah, the History Museum.
Yeah. So I think what the goal is really is to partner with some of the other boards and commissions, making sure that we're all working together, we're not duplicating, that kind of thing. So there's, from my perspective, and I'll just speak from my perspective, is there's a lot of process stuff, and that's kind of what I'm kind of good at. My background's in law and aging. I'm a disability and elder law attorney. I'm also an ombudsman, so I work a lot with old people, which I love. But I also am a mediator and a group facilitator, so to me, process, it's important. You
Yeah.
can't skip stuff, and
Oh, yeah, definitely.
you know, you
Or else it
kind of.
doesn't, nothing gets done.
So I had, you know, being sort of that taskmaster, you know, is something that I'm willing to do, but I also want it to be something that, as a group, as a team, we're all equals. We all are invested in working on this, and it's certainly not for me to direct that. It's
No.
the process, yes, but certainly not the individual. So
Right.
I just want a healthy, cool,
Yeah.
forward-looking kind of group that can
Yeah.
do some good things in Trinidad.
Well, just to let you guys know also, like, the 12 years I've done the land survey, 8 of those was with the U.S. Forest Service. And I've also worked with the Bureau of Land Management doing projects, and a little bit with the Historical Society of Colorado. And it was for, and I talked this last time I came and did a presentation. There was a ghost town up in the forest I was working at that wasn't identified, but somebody told me, yeah, this used to be an old ghost town, but there was no remnants of the ghost town except for the old tree that they would hang the people off of. So I did a little study in the area and found some of the old
And foundations.
foundations of the building and was able to map some of them, and then I passed that on to the historical people in the forest, and they were able to start their lengthy process of trying to get funding to get like a placement for this, as far as like markers and stuff. The old cemetery is still there, but as far as the town, it's just completely gone.
Yeah, that sounds right up the, when, you know, our event is called Echoes of History, Preserving Trinidad's Past. I always have to kind of think about it, but that the echoes part was very intentional, because we're talking about not just bricks and mortar, which are obviously important, but the cultural history as well.
Right.
And you know, Denver, the History Colorado has designated, I think, one of the first cultural districts in the Denver area, the La Alma Historic Neighborhood District, and then 5 Points as well, so I think there are 2. So that sort of broader vision of what does historic preservation mean in Trinidad, I think, is important.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I will have to quit talking, and at this point, Chris, guide me and direct me. What do we need to do?
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I had a question for you. When does the Urban Forestry Board meet?
Yeah.
Those are the 3rd Mondays of every month.
What time?
I think we do have 5:30 also.
So that's good. Well, it doesn't, well, we're looking at alternating our time, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's the 3rd Monday of
Third
every month.
Monday, so don't do anything on that day then. How many people are on that board?
It's 3 of us. Should be 7, but
Yeah.
it's at
Every
least
board
3 of
seems
us.
to
that
be
we can-
lacking some members.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the reason I think it's good to vet, and also to make sure expectations are set and understood. And I think that
If you miss 3
we,
meetings, right, you're supposed to be, if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, that it's.
is that it? Is it 3?
I think it's
Yes.
somewhat. Yeah, but we don't want to throw anybody off.
It's
Yes.
upon the discretion of
Of the board.
the
Board,
commission.
Yeah. So I think this can be a really strong and stable commission. That's what I'm hoping for. So unless there are any other questions, I'd like to, if I may, make a motion that we recommend to City Council that Carlos Madrid be appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission. Do I have a second?
Yes, that's it, yeah. Second motion.
She seconded.
Okay.
She wants to
Chris,
call
do you
for
want to
it.
call vote for that
Of course.
recommendation?
Sure. There would be Delicio,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Thomas is absent, Shirley.
Yes.
All right.
Do you declare the motion passes, or does the chair do that? I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, it's unanimous with them.
Yeah, just wondering,
Members
for
that
for
are
the
here.
record.
You should be,
Okay.
probably the chair should.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, so we will recommend that to city council, and then, I don't know if it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting, but.
Yeah, I was asked by Audrey to get this to her as quickly as
Okay,
possible for the
okay.
next city council meeting, and
All right.
which
I will
is
notify you.
Monday?
Cool.
Third
I
Monday
will
or
do that.
third Tuesday?
It's on the 18th.
18th,
I'll be there.
5 o'clock, right? Is it 5 or?
So,
It's
since
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
that task has been accomplished, we want to let you go for the night, but we also, we're gonna move on in our agenda, but we are gonna be talking about, changing our meeting time. We'll have to see, we won't
Okay.
vote on that today, we're just gonna discuss that, we'll vote on it, I guess, next meeting, is that right, Chris? Do you have any, dates, time of
Daytime.
day that that does not work for
No.
you? I'm gonna be asking for around a 10 o'clock meeting
Fine with me.
on a weekday.
Yeah, oh yeah, 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that works. I like daytime.
Good.
Yeah.
I do too.
I'm pretty free during the day too.
Okay,
So.
we just want
The only day, well, no, that works for any day for me, really.
Good.
I was thinking the days that I work over at the bar, but
That's
that's late at night, so I don't have to worry about that.
So daytime would,
At the Trinidad.
Yeah.
I do one day a week over there just to help them out.
Nice.
okay.
Yeah.
Keeps me a little intertwined with the
Yeah,
people in the
the
community.
social
Yeah,
life.
I get to talk to people and see what they're up to.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
We got a full report about that.
Yeah.
You never get out. You never get out. No, I don't. I'm just
All
Well,
right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
you
for
guys.
coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So we are now at unfinished business. We normally adjourn about 6:30, but we'll see if we can move through the rest of these items and adjourn after that. So number 6A, city-owned buildings, landmarking, status update on City Hall and historic Trinidad golf course. Ms. Kritz.
I got an update from Boonsma that she should be complete with City Hall by the end of this month. I provided her with as much information as I possibly can. I don't know if it was helpful or not, but apparently this is a long process.
So I thought we were deferring City Hall because of the possibility of construction or windows needing replaced. Is that still
Well-
an issue or not?
On the horizon, I see some undisclosed information that I can't give out about the golf course that I don't know if that's going to push the City Hall up. But then I believe Jean Delicio has an update that she'll provide about Paul Glenn, and
No, but
that
he's
might
not doing
take
the
precedence.
He's not doing, oh, I see what you're saying. For Boone's had to do that, because I didn't realize she had to do it.
Yes.
Well,
So,
but City Hall, there's no construction, so she is gonna.
well, windows are really fast. They're not going to be.
No, I'm not challenging that. I just thought I thought Audrey had some objection or concern about it.
That they were gonna replace
I
the
think
windows
this is the
first
best-
before trying to do it, so that they could do something different with them.
But this will probably be the best I mean, it's
Yeah,
not going to look
it'll
much
do.
better with new windows.
Okay, well, if
Start.
if the city staff is good with it, and if
We're good.
we're
But I
certainly
would like
good
to
with
add
it.
that applications from outside
Oh, the.
take
priority.
precedence.
Yeah.
So we would like to
Do what first?
make sure that, like, if someone turned in an application for
Private
landmarking,
property.
that take precedence.
So is he gonna turn in one for East Street? Is that the one you're talking about, or Presbyterian Church?
I heard that there were 3 applications being prepared at this time.
And he's doing it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's doing East Street School.
Who's
lady,
he?
The Paul Glenn that talked to us last week. That got
Well-
the approval. And East Street Presbyterian Church and.
And I don't know the undisclosed location it could be. I can't guess. I'm not gonna guess.
He's
So
got several projects that are going on.
I sent them that, or I
Yeah.
sent Betsy, his associate, the applications for landmarking today. She conveyed that there was 3 possible properties. I do not know what they are.
So let me ask a question, as I like to do.
on
So is it part of this tradition, or is it in the municipal code, or who says that the private properties come before the city-owned properties? Where does that come
I
from?
feel like that is just common courtesy. It's not in our code. Audra said that I mentioned to her about it, and she said, "Oh, good, we can put our city-owned properties on hold until these get through, because we don't want to delay any kind of public request."
So it's more of a public policy kind of.
Correct.
Like a
And I
courtesy.
think we have
Okay.
a timeline to follow that is in code. I'm sorry, I can't quote it, but I want to say it's 60 days
For.
For what?
to process an application for
Oh.
review.
Processing.
I don't know if that's architectural review or if that's landmarking, so apologize that I don't,
Check on that?
I'd have to check on the
Could
code.
you check that when you get a chance?
But I don't think we could possibly make it.
Well, I don't think any of the
With
properties he
Boomsa.
has are finished with construction.
Even by the end of December?
I'm not
Is
sure
that
why
what you
they're
mean?
pushing the fastness of it. They're not even
Is that
finished.
the end of fiscal?
When did we give that request to Boomsma? I feel like it was over a month ago,
Yeah,
and it's a long process
it
apparently.
is. It's quite, well, Tom did his own. Didn't you do your own, Mr.?
What's that?
The application for landmarking?
Yeah, but I had all my history,
Yeah, he has.
so it was a piece of cake for me.
Yeah.
You had it and you had photos and it was, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, but. You know,
Well,
think
I was blessed with Ken Fletcher, so
That's
Yeah.
right.
I had
And I
have
wanted to
everything,
ask
and
you
I'm
that
doing
que-
more with it.
Right.
So
When did you get that didn't you get the 500 incentive dollars?
I think I did.
You got a
Pretty sure I
500?
did.
And that was because He
applied.
that applicant completed his own application.
Right.
Okay, that's where I was just confused.
So I did
Yeah.
So it's whoever
I
completes.
did not know about that.
Yeah,
Thanks
I don't
for that
think we have to
information.
have Boomsa to complete the application. This isn't, Tom did his own and well.
Most people aren't able to do their own.
It's
I
very
don't think.
difficult. But they
It
don't
is a
have-
difficult process, and I'm sure the gentleman that helped you was accredited.
Ken Fletcher.
I'm in the presentation we did. I mean,
Yeah.
I thank him every time. So
Yeah.
whether I noted it on there or not, because it wasn't all his. I mean, I still had a lot.
Oh yeah, you provide the history, and he just puts it in
Well,
the right place.
he gave me every article that was written on my business, on my building, the property, and on the business. So that's and then I had a lot too. So it was a mixture, but definitely a lot of what he did. And I got to tell you, I have the research that he did on a lot of buildings. So you should probably
Different buildings.
show me which building and I'll look it up because I made copies from somebody else's. So I may be able to help some of these people if you tell me
Right.
what property it is.
Yeah.
So there's no
But we
requirement
want
that we
some money.
use a consultant or anyone use a consultant.
I didn't think there was.
I thought there was a requirement for that they had to be licensed, but that might be the
Because they do the consultations with the shipper and all that.
yes, they have to do the confirmations, and
Because
that
they
might
do
be
what?
our CLG.
Consultations with the State Historic Preservation Office
Uh-huh.
up in Denver.
So that's what he's.
Our CLG requires that we have an affiliation with someone who has the accreditation.
affiliation.
Okay, so
That's
there
why
is a
that's why
specific
you're using-
accreditation
Yeah.
that is required in order to submit.
Yes,
An
I'm not saying
application?
that they'd have to be the one to
Or get paid.
write the,
Right.
I think they're the one
Landmarking.
that does the report.
okay.
And then we'd probably
Or they
present
could-
that to you or us or something.
Right.
I don't know what happens if they send it to the SHPO themselves. I'm not sure how that
Yeah.
works here.
Plus it has to, that every building that's historical has a SHPO ID, so that probably has to be included in that, and I don't think any person can just go, hey, add this to that ID. It
Yeah,
has to be somebody who's
Yeah, the
accredited.
SHPO's not
Well,
gonna
but
give you
the-
that information because you could easily just go steal a bunch of stuff or, you know, do
But
stuff
it
on
could be a joint process,
It happens.
in other words,
It happens a
right?
lot.
You could have the
Correct.
property owner could do a lot of the
That's a
legwork,
good
and then
idea.
perhaps the consultant just does the other
They
pieces.
assemble,
Okay.
they assemble.
yeah.
Okay.
That's a good way to say it. That's-
I just think it would be really, if a chunk of our mission as the Historic Preservation Commission is to encourage the landmarking process, I believe that is a true statement, then I just think we need to know really clearly what that process involves so that we
Right.
can get that word out and be really, really crystal clear. We could be doing some PSAs, in the community, we could certainly be doing more if we chose to,
I'm not sure if that's,
if we have the capacity to actually process those
Right.
applications. But maybe we don't, I don't know.
No, we process it. She processes it.
That's
and
what
then
I'm
we
saying.
approve it. Right, yeah, but you're right. We have to find out if there
I
needs
don't
to
know
be
if that-
authorized or
if that's not included in
the ordinance.
the seal, I was gonna provide y'all with the CLG and what it stands for. If I did not send this out to you, I apologize, but I'm going.
I think it's in our
Accurate, yeah.
binders. Do we have a binder for, well, go ahead, sorry.
This was provided in the last month. It's
Oh,
2023 manual, program
Oh, no, we
manual,
need that.
manual for CLGs.
Yeah.
If it's not included in here, the landmarking process, I'll make sure that we also have that process. And I'll
And all the
include this
forms.
in an email to all
That would be
of
super.
the commission.
Yes, so we understand what our job
Yeah.
is.
Sure.
Better.
Okay, so I think what we're saying, and correct me or interject, is that certainly if other property owners present themselves and however they do their applications, either on their own or with Ms. Boomsaw, that we certainly aren't going to object, to that, and we'll take them in the order that they're received. Is there at least a, kind of a process for that? I mean, you would take first come, first serve? Kind of, sort
Or
of,
how would you
maybe?
determine what's
Yeah, but
most important?
I'm just saying that all I was trying to convey is that city-owned properties will take a back burner because they're
Okay,
not.
They're still gonna be there next year, whatever.
Yeah, they're still going to be there, but I don't want to put somebody
Public interest
from the
might-
public on hold.
Certainly,
No, I
certainly.
think you're right. I agree with that.
no, I don't
Yeah.
disagree. I just think that we need to make sure we understand what the process is, so.
Sure.
Okay,
I just have one more question on
Yes.
that, because of the Fox West still being on this 10,000, that maybe we should substitute the water building or a next on that list of 15, or should we? Because that's not gonna be ready for another 2 years to
I thought they
landmark.
had a pre-opening.
Well, it's not,
You mean
that was
Fox
just for
area?
a small area, the frontal
That's
part,
for the
it's not for the
retail.
whole building.
Oh, just the small area
I
in
mean,
front.
they just had a little grand
Entrance.
for the entrance, and it wasn't even finished. I mean, the walls are finished, but nothing, the floor, and they did have the beautiful lighting involved, but it's not. and they
Can I answer that when we get through a landmarking process?
Yeah, well, we
I-
can substitute later, because we're not gonna, like you said, City Hall might take forever.
Yes.
are we at least kind of at a
Yeah, we're.
stopping place for
Yeah,
that,
we're
and we're
done.
not, it's not completely resolved, but I think
Right.
we
Right, we
had
can go
enough
on.
We
discussion.
visited it.
Okay. And then under 6B is kind of our big topic, which is the budget review and approval. And we also have at C, the planning for the May event, and I don't know that we're gonna, try to do all of that tonight. I'm gonna propose that we,
Can I
do a,
Make sure that everybody has this in front of them.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Will you
I
discuss
actually
it?
have
Thank you for
copies
doing
of
that.
it.
Thank you for doing that, Nicole.
Yeah.
And she made copies too, I'll take those.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'll take one of your copies too if you want to give it to me. I'll put it in my file.
I
That
just
was good.
wanted to make sure that we have this in front of us before
Yeah.
we start discussing this.
So again, just trying to manage the agenda and the time. If we're in agreement, we could spend, the next few minutes talking about the budget review and approval. And then I think we need to defer on any planning for the event until either next meeting or suggest a work session on that for that and
That's a good
some
idea.
other
Yes.
things, I think. And then in terms of reports at 7, A, B, and C, were we saying we had some other
I just have a
reports?
short little report.
Okay, so if those are fairly short reports at 7,
Yeah.
we'll just plow through those. So let's go ahead and defer on C for the planning and address our budget request. Anybody want to start?
Well, we discussed it quite a bit at length, and Chris did a good job of rehashing the minutes with that. But I'm just presenting some of the ideas, and I think we had 7 presenters or more. They wanted to change the amount to 500, or 14 presenters at 500, to get the honorarium.
Are we talking about the budget
Expenses, yeah, the
currently?
budget,
Okay,
for the event, so.
So we're looking at this spreadsheet that Chris provided to us for anyone that might be listening, and this is just the process that we need to go through to make sure that we are all on the same page before we send a request
Right.
to council for them to approve or not.
And this is marijuana money, right? Is this the marijuana money, or? is it-
yes,
it's-
which I hear is being considerably cut down due to reduced sales.
I figured that would happen, sure.
Has historic preservation operations always been funded by the marijuana funds?
Historically, we haven't been in,
General fund, maybe.
we
I don't know.
haven't been, the HPC hasn't been inactive that long.
Right.
So I don't think it's ever been budgeted
Mhm.
as a normal line item through
Right. It's all
the
been
city.
marijuana, but I remember.
So again, I don't want to get stuck on that. We could talk about this maybe in a work session. I would really like for us to
Well, we
revisit
really
that.
we have to have this submitted.
I understand that, and I would like to look at,
I see,
is there a more stable, ongoing
right.
way for this commission to
That's a
be
good
funded
question.
rather than this source?
Yeah,
So,
that's a good question.
because I've heard that the sales tax is down 50%. Is that?
You mean the
do we know that?
marijuana
Yes,
sales
I
tax?
should say marijuana, yes.
That's what I've heard about approximately,
Yeah.
and we've had 2 of the major marijuana grows pull out. So,
The grows, the manufacturer.
pull out of town.
Rocky Mountain Tillage is selling their operations, so that's our
I
largest.
figure some of these stores are gonna close down.
And which is the other one that's manufactured?
I can't really divulge it at this time, but I heard that another grow is, or retail operation is going to go into retail sales of not marijuana.
So I just think that's relevant, obviously, to the budget
Yeah.
request that we
Yeah.
send, and if it's, I will just say, I think that this is really overly ambitious. I'm just gonna say that. I would love for us to do a 1.5-day program. I think 7 presenters at $1,000 is a lot. I'd like to see us reduce that. The live music amount, I'd like us to, this isn't gonna be necessarily popular, but to reduce that amount, really by half. I would reduce the honorarium by half, the live music by half. In fact, this overall budget, I would almost half. And if we are gonna do this cover letter that we talked about, among other items, I think we can certainly include our realization, understanding that the marijuana revenues are down. but I would like to see us get funded, and I think this is a lot. Doesn't mean it's all good stuff, but I just can't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic. I just can't imagine that the council is going to go for this.
Well, let's move to reduce that and to take out the sales. I mean, we probably need to pursue a general fund account that might be a more stable outreach or something if they can. I don't know what department that would be in, planning department, because they seem to get requests. I mean, those departments sure had a lot of requests through the sales tax of marijuana. But it's fine with me. I'm probably not on the board next year, so I haven't submitted my application, so I'm just a big planner. I think we should have gone for what we did before and not try to go down, because we did get 35 for the last 2 years, so we don't want to go down.
So are we talking about still having a one-day symposium thing, or what we're?
Yeah, let's talk about the date, the timing. Is it gonna be a 1 day or a day and a half? Or
Probably a 1 day would be the better.
okay, 1 day.
1 day.
So Jean, you're saying that this commission received $35,000 each year for 2 years in a row that you're aware
We'd
of?
have to look it up. I don't think we spent a lot in the first 2 years I worked, because we were mostly doing the historical landmark application and getting training with History Colorado. We hardly spent any. I think we did spend some on the
Landmarking.
Space to Create building. Did we? Or do something? I'm not sure when Tara was here.
I just think it would be helpful to know what kinds of funds
I
that
haven't
were
seen any budget that I
allocated.
Well,
This
I
is
just
the
feel
first
like
time
we
previously.
did not spend our whole budget for this
Right.
present year.
Right.
And I don't think we're going to accomplish that task.
Mm-mm.
So I just hope they don't look at that
Well,
and say,
Are those funds, and I know I've asked this before, but I'm still not clear, the unspent, so we didn't have, did we have,
it doesn't go in
It
a
doesn't
bowl
carry
that we
over.
get to, yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't get to
so we don't have
carry
any
over.
budget right now?
We have a budget that
Is
we're
it-
using for FY '22,
Right.
but I'm just saying we're not going to spend everything that we requested
Mhm.
for this current year.
And none of that will carry over?
No,
Okay.
Yeah,
we start all over.
and
Okay.
if we don't
That's
use it,
what I think
do
we
we
should
lose
keep
it? I mean, we use it, don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I hope they don't look at it and go, well, they didn't spend their
So we're
only
gonna
half
go
their
down.
budget, so we're just gonna
Give them what they spent
slash
last
it
year.
and give them what they spent.
Well, that's what I would probably say.
Yes,
if I
that's
were
what. If I was the CFO, that's probably what I would say.
So
but
how
I
do
hope
we,
that
how
this-
do we rebut that? What is our explanation
We have
for
to
that?
have broad goals, and
Well,
this has to, we have to say, well, we have an outreach that we have to accomplish
Mm-hmm.
in order to establish our CLG.
Mhm. And that will be in this cover letter that we're gonna put with the spreadsheet?
Yes,
Okay.
which I need to get done by the end of this
Right, it's due by the 14th, right, this Friday.
this Friday.
Well, if you, I mean,
think we
if the
should go for the
commission
big
wants
amount
to
and
go
then
for
let 'em cut it.
this, and I know you put time and effort into it, then I'm just certainly not gonna object to it. I just wanna make sure that we get something.
What happens if they disapprove this?
I don't
We
see
go
them
back to the
disapproving
drawing
it, but they would probably substantially reduce it.
So let's just submit it so they can reduce it, because.
Yeah, and I just felt like it was a good effort for us to
Absolutely.
And
put
we
in
have
a reduction
plans, we
on
have
our own.
plans,
And
yeah.
we have big architects that are working in this city with the Fox, and with this Paul Glenn is a
Now that Paul Glenn
he's a major
has stepped up,
international.
I don't
guy.
think we should. Like I was taking that money out of the bottom line landmarking
Yeah,
budget. I don't think we should do that. I really think it needs to come out of the top expenses.
Which
You're
part?
talking
Like you
about
say, you
the
wouldn't have
incentive
7 presenters anymore if you're only having 1 day, probably. You'd have 4 or 3.
That's a
Right.
good idea.
That's a good idea, let's
So
do that.
that's gonna go down and you wanna pay
Could
them
we
less.
take the 4K out of some of the top, like
So there's 3,000
Well,
right there.
there's 3?
Go on.
So which line item are you doing now? Honorarium? On the,
Yeah, the honorarium,
so 4 presenters at 500? Is that what you're
Sure.
saying? And that would be
So
2,000,
that's quite a
right?
lot, quite a big
Let's do
difference.
that, because these people will probably speak. for
3,500,
free.
right?
Yeah, 4 at 500.
yeah, that sounds like a lot
Or
to
is
me
it
right there,
1,500?
but I think that's satisfactory. So 4 at 500
right?
is
4 at
the,
500?
The
2,000.
gift
Oh,
bags,
more.
gift bags 80 at $25 each.
Well, that's my idea.
What's in the gift
To
bag?
give the people that attend something, and we would go around and pick up bling from all the city and different things to give them, because it's so fun to get a bag of goodies from, you don't have to buy anything, but maybe just pick up free samples of, I mean, maybe businesses would donate things and make sure that they're known, or,
No, I like the idea of gift bags. I don't know who's, I mean, that's a lot of work. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to,
Well, Sandra-
80 is a
devil's
lot.
advocate, so who's
You think
gonna
we're
do
gonna
all
have
that work?
80
Who's gonna go
sessions?
get all those gift bag items?
Me, I'm gonna do, I already go around to talk to
That means
everybody.
you have to
We
stay
think
on the
we'll have
commission.
80
I don't have to stay on the commission to work for this commission, do I? Do I have to come to the monthly meetings? I haven't even applied again. That brings up the
you
membership.
told me you were,
I didn't send in my application, do I? Just
you
send
don't have to, you sent an email.
to Audra and just say I'd like to renew my,
And you have to
a
fill out the
1-year
form
term, how about
again.
that? A 1-year term or 2-year term? What do they need?
It's
They don't even-
whatever your discretion.
Yeah, okay, I'll send it tomorrow. Well, so 4 at 500 makes that 2,000, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll just keep the gift bags, keep the live music, keep the
Okay.
advertising,
Okay.
and
So-
then that's gonna be
The registration of the events
So
on
that's
the,
7,000, right?
on the revenue?
7, yeah. Well, that would be a way of showing that we're at least trying to generate some money for the city to put
But
in our budget.
$100?
What do you think we should
to
I'm just
spend
wondering
$100
who's
to come?
coming? Who's gonna come and actually
What do
pay
you think,
$100?
50? I'll
Well,
put 50.
maybe 25.
Oh, okay.
I mean, who do we want to come to this? We want
Anybody, everybody.
Joe
Well, that's
Citizen,
true,
right?
you're right, more like the kids and the teachers, and
Yeah.
maybe we offer some scholarships, so let's
Yeah.
put 50 at 25. And don't put the architects, because we don't have that in line at all, just take out that $1,000.
For what? The
The architectural challenge,
What
that's
was
a-
that?
So we've cut out
that was our
3,
friend from Colorado Springs, remember, that was building those
Yeah,
cardboard?
okay, yeah.
But he hasn't got back, did he ever get back to you?
I haven't
I
heard.
haven't heard from him, and I don't think he's, so just put 50 at $25, right? How much
For
is
the
that?
registration, and then we're deleting the sales
I
of
just think
the,
registration makes people have ownership and make them come, you know, feel free.
12.50.
They might say, I didn't pay anything for that, so I don't wanna go.
well,
50,
I
but,
just don't
but
know who's gonna really pay a lot of money for our
Well, look what
first
we
one.
paid, we paid 300 for History Colorado, our
Right,
we
that's
paid-
History Colorado. I mean, we're in Trinidad.
What did we pay for
Think
the
about that. you know,
registration
really.
at, what did we pay for Fort, or, St. Louis conference, Chris, do you remember the registration, 150, wasn't it? Each?
Mhm. We're not at that caliber yet.
Right, no, I know.
and that
That's
was
right.
for like
I'm afraid that's what's
historic
scaring
preservation
everyone off.
community. That was not for the
Yeah.
general public.
That's true, that was. back
This is
then.
general public, right? Is that
No,
not
that's
our
true.
audience?
Yeah.
It's general public
Alright, so
outreach.
So 50 per people at $25.
So that's
That's
1250.
$12.50.
Okay.
And so that's just our revenue, but that's just to buy ownership.
Okay.
And then we have 7,000 for the total expenses of the event.
Okay.
Right.
And then we
Gotcha.
keep our landmarking for the city-owned buildings at 10,000. Because if we don't spend it, we'll get it next year.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we'll keep the development of the training staff at 3,000. And then we just, what about the incentives? Maybe that's where, if we don't get any applications, we can cut that
Have
budget.
one open and then
Have one
the
open.
Temple area and the Jaffa and one open.
Well,
Well, see,
that,
I-
those 3 could be filled by Paul Glenn next
Well, let's
week.
just
Right,
keep
yeah,
that.
that's
right.
true.
Let's just keep that. And
Yeah,
then-
I would think we
Keep
should
it all.
keep that. And on the development and training piece, and again, I don't know, if we could do this, please, on the cover letter. We need to indicate what that is. People reading this I guess the CFO is familiar with what's been done before, but we have a new city manager. We have other people who are new on the commission that we want to educate about what we're doing.
Yeah, but we're going to also need to include
27.
the scholarships for CLGs, which would cover all of our expenses except for registration.
So we need to explain that. We need to have that in our cover letter, that this professional development is also covered by grant funding, or however you want to word that, so that whoever's reviewing this
Mhm.
needs to understand
That's a good point, yeah.
it better than just the spreadsheet.
I think you did that before and that, so, yeah, but the spreadsheet makes it straighter. I like
Oh,
the
it
spreadsheet.
definitely
I like how
helps.
you did the.
Absolutely.
I'm
you
gonna
did
say
put the waterworks.
150 for each member, and I'm gonna estimate the
Travel.
members at 6.
If we got
Meaning
a full
5
house.
commission and 1 staff?
Oh, at 7.
Who are the 7?
Well, I'm estimating, let's see,
Do we have 5
Derek
members?
and
Or 6?
our applicant.
Especially Carlos, yeah, he'd like to go. I don't
So
need to go
that's-
anymore.
So that's
Okay.
5, right?
So,
And a staff.
I don't know, you tell me.
No, I'm just
3.
wanting to be clear. I don't understand what you're saying.
Oh, I'm thinking the registration has to be covered for this expense, and then the scholarship covers the remaining amounts.
Right. So for a total of how many people are going, like the commission ostensibly, even if you don't go, but if you have 5 commissioners and 1 staff, is that right?
I don't know if I wanna go.
To
Well,
where
What
the
do you think about
I'll just do 4.
this planning?
Just
4?
do 4 next year. You 4. Or
Well, I
Carlos.
don't even know if I want to. Seriously.
That's the
Where are we talking
planning.
about going?
But Denver, I think it's the
Oh.
The
Denver
February event, right?
It's
Oh.
Denver.
District Colorado.
But
But they might-
Here in Denver and
Yeah.
everywhere. I always try to get.
I'm
out
gonna
here
estimate
every
4 as a safe number at 150 each. So that's the $600 scholarship.
Which needs to be described.
650.
So that's the coverage, and then that would that be taken out of staff training, or do you want to leave that
Seems like it would
$3,000 line item alone?
Well, what did you come up with for?
Because we don't pay the 600, it would be the 2,400. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Take the
your
600 out.
Gene estimated that training would be at 3,000, and
600 is scholarship.
oh, maybe I have that wrong. We had to pay the registration, and
They refunded
History Colorado paid for the
travel.
travel,
Oh, the
lodging,
hotel and what have you.
hotel,
Mm-hmm.
in that.
So,
So will they
Just
have
take
2 events like they did this year then?
I would just,
just
I
keep-
would, yeah, say
keep the
that.
3. We've had 3. I know we spend at least that much every year, so I know that's been in the
Okay.
budget, so
Okay.
keep that 3,000.
Well,
So we have
that's
2,900. We take down half the expenses of the HPC, change that to 6,500. Keep the 10,000 for the city-owned buildings, keep 3,000, and keep the 10,000, so that takes it down to 29, with maybe an income of 1,250, at $25,
Okay.
and delete.
I-
So that, I think we ought to keep it up there.
Okay. No, I appreciate the
think it was
discussion.
23
I
last
appreciate
year.
the discussion.
Yeah, it was good that
For
we,
sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
good to talk about it, because you're
Yeah.
right, a one-day event,
Yeah.
a Saturday.
So we are saying 1-day event,
Yep.
which also needs to be explained in our cover letter
I'd like to
quickly.
pick the date at least, because.
I thought we had the 9th, but
Yeah,
I
think,
could
well,
be
the
wrong.
9th is
I
a
don't know.
Friday. Well,
Is it?
I thought we tried to correlate with the first Friday of
No, but we want,
March.
yeah, we want the Saturday after the first Friday,
Yeah, so
right?
that would be the 3rd. That's what I was looking at.
Oh, okay.
We're talking
Because we
June?
did it June 3rd
June
this
3rd.
year.
Yeah,
Okay, so we are saying June 3rd.
yeah, because June 3rd is the well, Friday's the 2nd, the first Friday. in
Okay.
June, So the 3rd. of June.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay with everybody? June
Does that
3rd.
work? And if you could
Yeah.
include that on the
Terry
spreadsheet?
Racky, the 9th, but it's no big deal.
What did you say? You had what?
We said the 9th to carry, but that's
Oh,
okay.
right.
Yeah, well, I
We'll
just,
color that. But, and we'll look on our New Legends calendar to see if any other
Yes.
events conflict with that.
yeah, and if
Set
we
up
could
something.
include that date on the information that we send to be
June
approved.
3rd, a Saturday.
Yeah, all day Saturday.
So, yeah,
And
Just
we'll
put
try to get the.
1-day event, all day event on
And then
June
we just have a
3rd.
little luncheon and maybe coffee and donuts or something at the beginning, and go home by 3 or something.
I think we wanted to do tours when
Yeah,
we
we wanna take
apparently
a-
are getting a bus for the
Tourism board.
tourism board's getting
But
that,
not
and
for
I'd like
50
to be able to
people.
use that since won't the city.
Is there an expense for that?
Well, does the city own that?
Yeah,
I don't
the city
think, I do think
It's
it's
tourism
owned by the
board.
city, so, and the tourism board, if they would
Operates it.
work with us,
And we could take the trolley too. We'll have to take, I don't know how many that's.
Oh, I think that smaller
If we have
bus would
50
be
people
better.
at 25.
that's a good,
We have people drive their own cars.
showing that we work together and
Yeah.
commission
And
is
we
a
can go
good.
then to get matching money too, because I've seen a
It's
lot of
true.
people get funded through the tourism board. I got their annual report, by the way. If anybody wants to look at it, Audra was very good about finding that for me. So I couldn't attend that meeting where they presented at city council. Interesting time.
Okay, is there any more discussion about
So
the
do-
budget request?
So can we go over the expenses, total?
Right. Okay, so the HPC event is 6,500 total. Well, I can give you my worksheet. We're keeping the landmarking for city-owned buildings at 10, keeping the 3,000 for the training,
Mhm.
keeping the 10,000 for private-owned business landmarking. So I totaled that 20 plus 3 plus 6,500 is 29,500.
Okay.
And we all agree with that, right?
Yes, agreed.
And we just put, for the revenue, we we're just gonna try $25
And that's at 1250, I got that one.
and $12.50. And we're deleting that architectural challenge, because
Yes.
that will be a growth for the next people to do.
That'll be next year, the year after.
We just wanna include too many things. We never got our bingo game or our.
I know, darn it.
I'm just not clear on
I
the
didn't think about it.
expenses.
Because you
Is,
didn't, nobody else, I can't do everything.
the first line item is the 2,000
Right.
for
2,000,
I'm
we're
sorry.
4 people at 500. 2,000, advertising was still 1,000. The live music, take that down to 500.
500.
Gift bags, we're still gonna do that if we can at 2,000, and we can blend that into something else, we can always make that do, and the
You think
conference food
$1,000 is enough for food?
for 50 people, if we just do one lunch, do you think that's good, Chris?
50 people?
For 1,000?
Does that
Seems
come out
pricey to me, but
Well,
It's
that's
why-
less than 250.
Okay, so that total for the expenses for the event is 6,500?
Right, 6,500. That's $20 a person,
So
that's
they're
not
gonna
very
buy their
much.
own lunch, is what we're saying.
No, we're putting up the lunch, we're
Yeah, I
serving
think
lunch.
we definitely need to do that.
We have to serve the lunch, so that's $20 a person, that's
Oh.
not much.
50.
so we're just saying meals at
Math row.
1,000,
1,000.
and that totals 650, right?
What does
6,500.
mean?
6,500, I mean, yeah. So it's 2,950 total. So do we need to take a motion on that, Chris, or?
Are you clear, Chris, so we can vote on it?
Yes, I'm clear on it now.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience with
Yeah, that
us.
was good.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
Really wanted to
Well, I'll make a motion to accept the revised budget
I second that motion.
for 29.5. Good. For 23, fiscal year 2023.
All
And
right.
that we submit it with a cover memo describing the 4 categories.
A spreadsheet and a cover
Spreadsheet and a
letter.
cover letter. And if you want to help her write it, you'd be a good writer to help her write that. You've got the
How about
vocab-
if I try to put the numbers in and then
Just put
Elizabeth
4.
Kelly is great at looking over stuff.
Yeah,
So.
would you volunteer to look over her memo?
Well, if you start a draft, yes, in fact, I will read it and
Edit it and whatever.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
That
Well,
would work.
That was good though.
So Jean
I motioned, did you second
motioned
it?
and Shirley
I second.
seconded.
So when?
June
June 3rd, okay, June 3rd.
Do we have to call for the vote too? or what?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the vote. Delicio,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Thomas is out. Shirley?
Yes.
Alright.
Okay, so our fiscal 2023 budget request has passed and we'll go forward as we've described, and we'll get it to city council for review.
By the target date,
Yeah.
The
14th.
15th, yes. Thank you guys for
That was good. Good
hanging in
leadership.
on
Good
that.
discussion.
Okay, so we got through that, yay. Again, on 6C, this planning for the event, I would like to propose that we do a work session either before or after the holiday. But I'd also like to do a work session, if we have a new member or one or two members, I feel like we need to, as a commission, we need to understand better what the CLG is, and that we need to spend part of a work session reviewing that. We prepare for it, and we talk about what that means. We also look at our ordinance. I don't know if you guys are like me, I've had this wonderful
Yeah,
binder, and I did
Sheet,
look at it
yeah.
at first, but you know,
Right.
I've
We
had
need
to
do
force
it.
myself to go back through and look at our ordinance, and
It's a good idea. I like that.
so I think we just really need to have some study time for CLG, for our ordinance, and for the landmarking process, and to do that
And this
in,
book will
in a work
answer
session.
so many questions.
Good. I'm glad
Right.
to see that.
And we can, if we could have that as part of,
Um,
in preparation for a short session at our work session.
Two items on the agenda, right? The echoes and then the,
Yeah, the.
Retraining or something.
Yes, so I don't know if you wanna talk about a work
I think we should have
session
one in November because
date.
I think planning this thing has to start fast.
Yes,
We have to start getting it.
so if we're looking at November,
Yeah, let's look at November. And Carlos seems to be flexible. And do we need to discuss that meeting time change in a meeting?
Yeah,
Put it on the
and-
next agenda?
yeah, in conjunction with this,
So
yes.
we'll have it after the next meeting then, so that it can be announced.
So we have an already scheduled meeting in November, which
Right.
is what day?
The 8th, looks like.
We already have a scheduled date of the second Wednesday, which is
November
Ninth.
8th.
November 9th.
Oh, I'm on 2023. Whoa, wait. Gotta get back to next year. Oh, we're still on 22.
That's
I'm ready to
November, oh gosh. James.
November 9th.
November
Correct.
9th.
Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday.
So on November 9th, we need to add to the agenda to take a vote on changing our meeting time, which we should probably discuss now, and then we can also look at a work session,
Right,
perhaps that next week of the 21st, but before Thanksgiving.
right,
Or no, excuse me,
15th?
the week of the 14th
Yeah,
would be
right.
better, right?
yeah.
So what is everybody's pleasure as far as changing the meeting time?
I like the idea.
I do too, I'm fine with the
Yeah.
daytime. We just need to
We
see
need,
what day because
Right.
What
for
about
tourism.
Derek? Does he have a day job or how does that
Derek's
work?
the only one that would really be a consideration, and he's not here.
And I saw him yesterday at Walmart. I told him the meeting's tonight, so I know physically, and he said, yeah, I'm coming. So, and he's missed, not consecutively, but
A lot.
so tourism meets on what day?
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
Second and fourth
The second and the fourth Wednesday.
So I would.
Okay, so
Chris?
can I comment?
Sorry.
Yeah.
If you would get with Audra, because so there's no conflict.
All right.
Um,
You type, so you have
You
to
know,
know.
yeah, and Tuesdays are bad because if it's the first and third, I have county commission in the morning and city at night.
Yes.
So just look and see. I mean, if it's during the day, I'll accommodate it somehow. It makes it a little bit more difficult because if I have to have a service, I'll get Carlos helped me on the last one. But just make sure that you're not scheduling it when either this room or there's other things going on. When I was filming everything in town, everybody made sure that the county and the city and the school board and the ambulance and all these things aren't overlapping.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Fine.
so just be
Yes.
careful.
No, absolutely.
This has
Absolutely.
occupied a lot. I would propose that you keep it on the same date, just change the time only.
So second Wednesdays
And
at
fourth Wednesdays.
There's tourism
That's
this morning.
tourism.
This
Second.
morning,
that's tourism.
They have a work session and a,
I was here this morning.
yeah, so we'd have to do
What does Thursday
first
look
or
like?
third.
Can you check with Audra and find out
what's available or?
She has a sheet with
She has-
the.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have part of it here, but I don't have the whole thing, and it's,
I didn't know you coordinate with school board too, so that's another.
well, I don't
If we
think
keep it
they're
on
here, but
Wednesday.
I think that's Tom's schedule.
It'll have to be the first or third.
I
because-
was thinking an
second.
afternoon, like the second Wednesday would,
Well,
I
that's
was
an idea.
I can do that.
Time's fine with me, sure.
What time on the afternoon?
Is that,
3:30 or, I
Yeah.
don't know, or go over a little bit sometimes, but 3:30 or
So I thought,
2:30 or 3
So
3
does-
o'clock?
tourism meet though on that
well,
day?
not,
In
but
the
they meet
mornings.
9 to 10, about 9
They
to
meet in the
10:30.
morning.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at the afternoon.
Can you come on a Wednesday afternoon?
Wednesday, like,
Or you have to set up, you have to look at your calendar. On
Yeah.
the second, the same date, the second
The
Wednesday.
second Wednesday in the
Yeah,
afternoon.
yeah, if it's, tourism in the morning and that in the afternoon, that's fine by
Because
me.
you're already coming on that.
Is there a
you would not
time?
come back that night.
To do 1 o'clock.
As long as it's after,
Do one.
12.
Could we do 1 o'clock or 1:30
I like that.
on second Wednesday?
Yeah.
1:30?
1:30.
1:30?
We'll check with
1 or
Audrey.
1:30?
Yeah, 1 or 1:30, earlier.
1:30.
When you go to
Let's-
lunch, Chris? When you get back
12 to
from
1.
Let's say
So 1:30?
1:30 is better than 1.
Yeah, second Wednesday, 1:30.
So that's your first choice,
Yeah,
1:30. What's your second choice?
second Wednesday, 2:30.
Okay,
At
Or
2:30?
3 Yeah, 2:30.
yeah.
Is that good for you?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. I'll
And we have to put
propose
that
it
to
to
vote.
Audra
Yeah.
and see
It's
what
on
she
our next
says.
Yeah, so if you could get, yeah, and then we can vote next time, because it'll be noticed on our agenda.
And what do we have to, we want to set the work session?
And then a work session in November, the week of the 14th. Would that work sometime for y'all? We
I
did
think so.
we did them on Fridays before, and that seemed like it was
14th.
pretty okay.
works.
Any day is good for me now, so whatever day. I like to do early in the week, but whatever.
No,
I
I
have the whole day of the 17th off, but you said the 14th?
Yeah, let's do
that
Monday.
week of the 14th.
Can we do a Monday? I'd rather do a Monday and get, I don't like to do Fridays anymore.
So we'll be meeting,
Either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
we'll be meeting for a regular meeting on the 9th. And then on the 14th, you want to propose the work session at
14th, 15th, or 16th.
I can't do those other days. I've got
What day
work
can you
stuff
do?
the 15th and 16th. The 14th is good for me.
Work session.
Okay, let's do Monday. Is that good for you, Shirley?
Yeah.
Work session.
At
November
10 a.m.
Yep.
Work session, 10 a.m.
Can we sit in that room? So we don't-
November.
14th, Monday.
And Tom, you don't have to
Right.
do the work sessions, do you?
I try to do as much as I can. I mean, that a lot of times the work sessions where the real, stuff is done.
Decisions get made.
So,
But we may not be necessarily in here. If
Right.
there's
Right.
something going on, we probably get pushed over there.
Right.
well, let me know. I mean, I'm doing the best I can to provide transparency, and
Right.
the
You always
more I
do
do
that.
that, because then people can come back and say, "Well," and you're like, "Go watch
You
it.
didn't tell me.
It's
I
not
never
true.
hear
Go watch
that.
it."
I've never heard
Okay.
anything. I think our public meetings are really well documented.
Well, other boards, but it could happen. Be like, "What did they do? That ain't right." So it's better
Our-
that I get
our
as much as I
issues are-
can. It just relieves the
Yeah, that's true.
pressure of.
I see. I think I understand what you're saying.
10:30 a.m. I'm sorry.
10:30 or 10?
I think we said 10 on
10?
November 14th.
Wednesday,
All right.
November 14th. Okay, good.
If
That's
10:30
good.
is better, that's fine. But
No,
I
that's
was
fine.
saying
I was-
10. Okay.
Trying to get the next time.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so I'd like to, if we can get through the rest of our agenda. So I
Good.
think we're good with the budget. We're going to do cover letter, spreadsheet. We have a work session, possible meeting time changes. If we could move to number 7, which is reports, and start with the chairperson's report. And we will need to also, I suppose, add to our agenda next time a vote for chair and vice chair. We've kind of just been sliding
Right.
through. without
Right.
official appointment, so.
And maybe if you want to get, before you send out the agenda, maybe at least one of us could be with you to make sure everything on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I don't mind
you
doing
do such a good
that.
job of doing it, but I think it's good if we preview it before you send it out.
Sure.
That would
One
be
of us.
super, yeah, I'm good either way.
Okay, so we make sure all that, but you did a great job. Just leaving here. I will try and let you answer one more year. I don't know. I'll do it tomorrow. Just the email you said, right, to renew for whatever. Okay, go ahead,
There's an
Chair.
actual form you gotta fill out.
Fill out the form again?
It's easy, it's just the public interest.
So
Alright.
I have to do the renewal of 2 members.
Right.
You too.
And a vote on chair and vice chair.
And then we're gonna do in the same meeting, a vote on chair and vice chair.
Vote. And if we can get that list from Audra about the terms, the 1-year term, who's a 1-year term person, who's a 2-year term.
Yes.
And I did send a kind of what I thought it was.
Right.
But Audra needs to send that to us or something, if you can get her to.
I have her list that's really scratchy
Yeah, I
and
think
not
that was
updated.
Because we
I don't wanna
do,
provide that.
just to clarify, because the code says members may be reappointed by the city council to serve successive terms without limitation.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
And that's
So
in
that's
the
good, and I thought it was a
HPC.
4-year term, but we don't know who's our 1-year appointee. or
No,
our 2-year.
that's right.
And our 2 shall serve 3 years, so.
Gene, you can never leave.
I can never leave, I know, it's my only historical function here.
Any commissioners' reports
Don't
or
leave,
planning
I don't know
administrators'
about you yet.
reports?
I don't barely know what-
Jean has that little report about Paul.
Well, Paul Glenn gave that report on the Presbyterian Church, and we approved his approval from History Colorado last. And then I ended up talking to him some more because of the East Street, and it's apparently gonna have the reception, so that may be one of the buildings he would like to landmark, East Street School. And then
I'm sure.
he has the Eagles, apparently he had some of that $1 million funding that got appropriated to make affordable housing for the Eagles Lodge and another building, but they're not gonna be done for, and I don't even know if he has, the Presbyterian's not even, so I don't know where his other two buildings are. I think East Street's the closest one that he wants to get landmarked, and so that's all I know.
Is that across the freeway?
It's up there on 8th and, well, it's on Oak and about 2nd Street, isn't it? It's up
Oh,
behind
the
Yes.
the one that's East Street School. It's
And
on-
when I
it's
reached out to
national.
him about the October opening, they said that had been delayed due to Paul coming out and seeing how far behind they are.
Well,
Yeah, and they have a
Is
cooking
that
school
the,
there.
I was gonna
It's
say, is
supposed
that
to
the
be-
cooking school?
Yeah, cooking school,
Yes.
14 units for studio housing, and it's,
It's gonna be
They're
cool
actually
when it
gonna have a
opens.
grand opening already?
well, not, no.
They pushed it back a month because the
That's pretty quick. see?
proposed building, they were probably telling Paul a rosier picture than
And
what
it's a-
was
Right,
the truth.
and there's a meeting room that people can use, and there's gonna be a outdoor venue for public events and stuff like that, so it's cooking. So that's all I know about Paul. Everything else is not in the construction final stage.
do you know anything about the Fort Wooten landmark ceremony? Are we gonna do anything like that for those guys?
I
With
didn't have a
those
chance
guys?
to
I haven't
reach
had-
out to them, but I know I drove by and that plaque was not up on the
Well, there,
that
I
was
was
provided.
over there for
to them.
another event, and I was understanding that they're going to actually affix it to that, where that flagpole is in the center,
Oh, okay.
in the
good.
courtyard, on one of
Oh.
those retaining walls or whatever they
Oh, that's
are.
good.
Yeah,
I
so,
see him every Tuesday now. I have an event every Tuesday at the Fort Wooten,
at the
so I
where,
can ask him.
oh,
Fort Wooten,
Oh.
we have a class there now. And
Yeah,
Father
they may
Bill is
want
in
to
there.
plan it along with one of their other
Other
events.
That's
That
a
would
good
be
idea. Well, I'll check with
fantastic.
Bill Phillips and ask him.
that would be great.
Newton Dawes, because I see him now once a week.
Okay, is there anything else from the administrator's report?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Chris, those minutes were really well done, and you did a great job on
Yes,
sending Paul
I
stuff.
agree, I
Really
Great.
been working hard for us and getting Boomstar going, and
Yes, thank you so
that
much.
took a lot of energy, I know. We
Yeah.
appreciate all your hard work, and
We do.
Tom, we appreciate you too, being so
Thank you very much.
participating in our meeting. Do you want to be on the council? You should be on the council.
I can't sit in front of the camera and
No.
behind the camera.
That's hard to do.
No.
Can't do two jobs. That one.
No.
Okay,
Good
hearing
job,
no
Miss Elizabeth.
business, we'll adjourn this meeting at 7:19.